Welcome to Gaun Yersoul.
We are Victoria and
Lindy.
And we are from Rites and Ritual Scotland.
And we're here to talk about ceremony, ritual, spirituality, and how we can weave them all together.
And wherever that road takes us in the next hour, we have no idea.
Absolutely.
But this is our third podcast?
Third podcast. And before we even start, let's just say thank you, because
Excellent.
When we started this podcast, we kind of thought, said to each other, will anybody watch it? Will anybody listen to it? And we need to remember people are sometimes just listening and no watching.
Yes.
Last time
some
I was
visuals
talking
we're
about stuff.
doing.
Yes. But we weren't sure that anybody was going to be in any way interested. But we've had so many messages. You've had messages, I've had messages.
Really lovely.
Now, when it's people you know, you think, it'll just be nice. But when it's people you don't know, and it has been... It's been lovely, just saying really enjoyed it. Can't wait for the next one. So thank you to anybody who has watched, anybody who's listening. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's been a huge, given us a bit of a boost as well, isn't it?
It really has. And we're very happy to be back here. And today we are talking about the power of ceremony, because that is so, so important in this work. I think if you say the word ceremony to people, like if you played word association and you said the word ceremony, I think most people would probably say the word wedding, right? Mm-hmm. They think of ceremony in terms of a wedding. I don't even think they would say funeral.
No, and that's quite a point, because when I always talk to my families, when I'm dealing with my families, I always call them ceremonies. I find that the word funeral has a kind of heavy connotation, and I know it is a kind of heavy situation you're dealing with, but ceremony brings a kind of almost an element of joy and wonder to it, instead of just that kind of
It's a really good point, because funeral directors still talk in terms of funeral service
as well,
and that comes from the church, right? That comes from the church, because to them a funeral is a service of worship, right. So if you've ever been to a church service, which I know you have, you know that it is really, if ever, sort of centred around the person that's died, right? It's about God and that person returning to God. So they see that in Christianity, they see a funeral as a service of worship. So that's where funeral service comes from.
Right, okay.
But of course, most of the ceremonies we do are not services of worship, if any. We are ceremonialists, we're celebrants, and we're holding that space in a completely different way. So funeral service doesn't feel right to me for what we are.
It never sits right with me. And I've said it a couple of times at the beginning of the work, and then started to use ceremony, and nobody's ever said anything about me using the word ceremony. And even when I'm writing them, storing them on my computer, it's always, Joe Blogg's ceremony, Mary Jones' ceremony. I would never put eulogy or service, or it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like a whole sort of thing.
No, it doesn't bring that sort of depth that you want to bring to something so momentous, somebody's end of life ceremony. But funeral directors still
service.
They'll phone you and say, I've got a service for you. And that's the language they still use, because it's still this
service
throwback.
Sheets,
service
everything.
sheets, it's still this throwback to the church. But for us, it's definitely a ceremony. And as I say, we're here to talk about the power, the transformative power of ceremony, because ceremony really is one of our oldest tools to help us make sense of change, right? All ceremonies involve change. Whenever you're having a ceremony, there's some sort of change happening. If it's a baby naming, a new life has come into your family and it's changed it forever.
So we're building up to kind of a threshold moment of somebody's
the heart of ceremony is a threshold. But, a couple are getting married. There's a change in status, and sometimes there's a change if they're having to live together, now they're going to live together. So, and when somebody dies, there's a change in the family because that person's no there. So all ceremony involves change. And to me, ceremony is the oldest tool we have to help us to make sense of that. Now, in this modern world, while while many, if not most people, are disconnected from the true meaning of ceremony. You know, it's become quite commercialised, hasn't it? So they're disconnected the true meaning of it. Our ancestors were not disconnected from the true meaning of ceremony. They very much recognised the power and the importance of coming together in ceremony. And they did it at every opportunity, right? They gathered to sing, to chant, to feast, to burn herbs, to tell stories, all in order to give sense, purpose and meaning to their lives.
And I think that it seems to be more like our culture that has lost the meaning and the understanding and the depth of ceremony. You know, we'll say, oh, a wedding ceremony, for example, as you say, it's more commercial, but just outside of our own boundaries, looking at other cultures, they still have such depth in their ceremony. You know, those traditions are still carried through.
There's a message.
That Spirit's no happy
There's
with
a
me.
message for Spirit today saying...
I'd just like to point out that Lindy...
It was so taken with what you just said, Victoria, that's like, oh my goodness.
I'm going to throw myself off the...
We brought in a wee sign, as you could see, but we just forgot to bring in something. Oh, it's just sitting down there. We'll sort it out next time. We forgot to bring in something to actually hold up. So we had it kind of sticking up. There. But yes, no, I totally get you. However, and we'll probably touch on this a few times as we go through, there's a difference between just performative ceremony and ceremony with intention.
Are you sort of saying that a lot of the time that people, for example, if they book a wedding and somebody's going to say, they'll say, can I have this in my wedding because I've seen it on Instagram. That's just a photographic moment. That's just a performance. That's not bringing the depth to, or the understanding or the meaning to your couple or the family that you're working with. Yeah,
if they don't bring themselves, if they're not fully present and they haven't entered into it with intention, and you were saying like some other cultures, I'm really lucky enough that I've visited some of those other cultures and I've been involved in some of the ceremonies they do, and some of them do have depth and others are they're just going through the motions. You don't feel the presence of anything bigger. You don't feel that they've entered into it with, and I'm thinking of, I was in India like 2 years ago, I think, and I went to so many different ceremonies. And many of them, because I thought India would be a real thin place. I know we're going to talk about that another time, but it just means a place where it feels as if the heavens and the earth are, closer to each other. The veil between them is thinner. So you like in Scotland, Glencoe, you're driving through it, you feel as if you're in the presence of something, spooky. But I thought India would be like that. I thought it would be just a total thin place, and you'd be there and you would feel in the presence of God or the sacred or whatever all the time, and it didn't feel like that at all.
But that's because you are deeply rooted in Scotland, and that's your ancestral line, and so I think that is a cultural thing as well.
One person's thin place is another person's thick place.
Absolutely. I think you could be anywhere, but if you were drawn to something in particular place or people, then that's your that's your home. Inside you, that's probably an ancestral line of somewhere. I feel I've got a big connection to India because I spent my childhood in not in India, in Pakistan, and
which is just next door.
And I spent the first couple of years of my life. I really don't have any memories, but hardly any. But I had an ayah. My mother was very ill, so I was kind of raised for the first 2 years by a beautiful woman, Sidara, and I still visualize her. And I feel like I want to go back and connect somehow. But I think that's to do with a feeling of connection. And if you don't have that connection, then you can't. It's all about being authentic, isn't it?
And if we go back to our ancestors and ceremony and the power of ceremony, they got that connected them with the unseen. You know, our ancestors knew every turning of the season, every cycle of the moon. They understood the power of fire and earth and air and water, and the importance of bringing these into ceremony. And by doing that, by having these, engaging in these life thresholds, if you like, that kept them connected as a community. You know, it held them together as a community, but it connected the visible with the unseen. And to me, that's one of the most powerful things about ceremony. It connects the visible, the everyday life that we understand through our everyday sensory experience with that we can't see. Hugely powerful if it's done right. It's done right. But that's what we touched on, this idea of, and I've had ceremonies where I've come out at the end of it and thought, performative, didn't feel it, wasn't feeling it.
Even though the intention was there was something that just didn't.
The intention was there from my part.
Held.
Well, to me, from my understanding through my experiences, it's got to come from the people who are at the heart of the ceremony. Right? So if we see ceremony as a moment to pause, you know, ceremony is like a vessel, isn't it? It's like a vessel for change to occur. And it doesn't make change easy, but it helps to make it meaningful. So ceremony is like a vessel. People step into it, as I talk about stepping into ceremony. People step into it, and they have to step into it knowing something's going to change, something magical is going to happen. They are going to cross over a threshold because they enter into that vessel as one thing, and when they come out the other side, they're something different. That's what happens to you in ceremony if it's done right. But it's all got to come from, it's just say it's a wedding, it's got to come from that couple. They have to bring their intention to it. They have to be fully present throughout, because if not, it doesn't matter who's standing up here. You could be the best ceremonialist in the world, and I'm not saying that I am, but you could be the best ceremonialist that understands ceremony. It's just empty. It's just empty. It's just not going to have that. Because I've been in ceremonies, particularly wedding ceremonies. Funeral ceremonies are a wee bit different, but where the couple are just, they're up here somewhere, they're vibrating up here somewhere.
And to be honest, that's the whole, the day. You know, they're hyper, they're excited, they're nervous.
Years of planning and preparation. But if they don't find a way, if you're getting married and you don't find a way of grounding yourself as you step into ceremony, it's not going to be the kind of ceremony you want.
And that's one thing you've always done in the training when I trained under Lindy is, and I've always used it in the ceremonies that I do with my couples so far and going forward, is to take that moment before. I mean, obviously, the build up to the ceremony when you're writing their ceremonies together, and you're going into the depth about what you're going to be putting into the ceremony, what they would want. But apart from that, just before ceremony, if it's like you go and visit your bride in her room or wherever she may be, and she is up there somewhere, and the groom's a nervous wreck, and so if you can take that moment, and what's what you taught me and all of us is to have that moment of grounding, a very small, simple thing without freaking everybody out. It just brings everybody back down.
Well, do you remember that ceremony we did up in a place that I can't remember for two people that I also can't remember? That's terrible. Chemo memory, I'm blaming it on that. No, up at where the yew tree is, Finnefort.
Oh, yeah, up in Killin.
Up at Gillin, just outside Gillin. There's no Finnefort. Finnefort and Mull. Anyway, we did a beautiful ceremony outside. There was stones, and you and Gay went down to meet the bride before she came up, and you stood there together just in your threesome, just in a wee
beautiful
group hug, just spending a moment in quiet. And afterwards, that bride said that was one of the most beautiful moments for her, just to drop in to that space where she was preparing to step over this threshold. And it might sound a bit daft to some people. It might sound a bit, I don't think that's necessary, but it is necessary if you want to have it. And I think particularly for people like you and I, because we have very similar styles as celebrants, and that is, they're often filled with fun.
Kind of fun and up there and great,
happiness, mad games, banter with the guests.
Exactly,
I
because
love it.
even doing ceremony we talk about it because it has meaning and depth, but it doesn't have to lack fun and joy.
Absolutely. And I don't think it should lack fun, and that's something that I have questioned over the years, because I know that some people would say there's no room for humour, or certainly humour to the
solemn and
to the edges that I take it in ceremony. But to me, I don't think I've ever, and I'd be a bit worried if I did, had a couple come together in marriage that don't make each other laugh every single day, that don't put humour as one of the top things that brings them together. And so why should that not be reflected in their ceremony? I don't quite understand. But it has to be balanced.
Yeah.
It can't be stand-up comedy. It has to be balanced with that depth and that meaning and that reverence. And that's when you get real magic, because you get that beautiful balance between... In fact, the foundations have to be the latter. The couple have to know that what they're stepping into is huge. It's enormous. They are pledging their life to each other legally, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and they're doing it in front of all these witnesses. It's a really, really big moment. And so that has to be the foundations. They have to understand this is not just a party, even though we're in Scotland and we like a party.
We like a good wadding.
We like a good wadding, but it can't just be about that. The foundations must be built on reverence.
But that's what happens now, and it is. We say it all the time with our couples, and it is more and more our job in a way to make sure that they understand what they're going to be embarking on in ceremony, because a lot of the time we know that we'll get a phone call and it'll be like, oh, I'm getting married in 4 months' time at some venue that they've had to have booked for like 2 years. And they've got everything in place, the dress, the napkins, everything is in place, except the person who's going to be holding the ceremony. It's almost like over the years it's become less and less important. It's just another box to tick. Oh yeah, we've got to get somebody to legally do that. And it is amazing when you start speaking to your couples, because that's no reflection on them, it's just the way society is. And when you start speaking to them in depth, they kind of raise this awareness. Most of the time they're so invested in that. A lot of the time we'll meet our couples and the first thing they'll say is, I just want something simple. Just how long is it going to be? Because they're concerned, they don't want people standing there for hours, and we don't want people standing there for hours. We just want it straightforward. And you feel like saying, well, go to a registry office.
No, that's what I do say.
Oh, you would.
I'm less subtle than you. I'm being a wee bit flippant, but you do get lots of couples that come, and you're right, they have no knowledge or experience of ceremony done right,
and that's up to us to not educate them, but
that's
enlighten them.
That's what this is about. This is what this podcast is about. But they come and they think, well, that's the bit we just have to get through to get to the other side. But if they do that, they are absolutely missing a trick, because what they should be saying is the ceremony is at the heart of our day. This is the part where we're pausing time. We are inviting not just the witnesses that are there physically, but our ancestors, God, Mother Nature, whatever it may be. Yesterday I did a ceremony and it was outdoors. They're very outdoor people. They're very connected with nature. So it was this idea that we were being held by this beautiful Scottish landscape, and the forces, the weather spirits, the natural forces, that natural life force that runs through everything, turned their attention to our wee corner of Scotland as these two people spoke the words that cemented them as a couple for all time. And the idea of that is, to me, is just absolutely beautiful, because if you don't have that, if you just have somebody standing reading, anybody can read from a book. If you just have somebody standing reading from a book, the old mundane, and do you take,
insert name here,
and then okay, bye. And then that's when this beautiful energy is supposed to build, towards this big celebration. They're absolutely missing a trick if they do that, because if they go back and before they even think about booking anything else, they think, what do we want for our ceremony? Because one of the first things I ask my couples is, what mood are you trying to set for your ceremony? And more often than not, they go, I don't know. We haven't really thought about that. Well, everything that's going to come out of that, everything's going to come out of that mood. So if you want it to be really quite traditional and reverential, then everything will come out of that. The music should come out of that. The words should come out of that. The rituals should come out of that. Everything should be very natural, and it should all fit in with that mood. And then as you go through your day, that should also align with the mood you've tried to set.
It's really interesting, because that's just brought up a point. I'm working with a lovely couple, great fun, had the meeting with them. They've been together for a few years, they've travelled together, the whole thing, and been together since school, just that couple. And the first question, what sort of feel do you want for your ceremony? We want it to be fun, we want to have laughter. Great, perfect, we can put this. However, we will have that moment where we're taking your vows, we're bringing it down, or if we're bringing in any ritual. Absolutely. But, so when I was taking their story, there was lots of jokes, there was lots of funny stories. I went away and did my bit, put the whole thing together, kept the vibe of the humour up, the kind of comedy little stories, the wee jokes, the in-jokes that they had together. And then obviously the sort of main part of the ceremony, the heart of the ceremony, was a bit more kind of together and grounded. And they came back to me and she said, I really loved what you wrote. She said, but it's really interesting when I started reading the vows and doing the ritual. She said, we suddenly realised we don't want it to be a big laugh.
Yeah.
So we've restructured it. We've taken out some of the kind of jokey. Well, I mean, it's still love and light, but because her other half, he's just a lad, But they really felt it.
Yeah.
When the ceremony came back to them, they felt it. They felt the importance of that, of holding ceremony. Yeah. And I thought, there's no way my ego was going to get in the way there going, all right, what you say, you don't like my writing?
Yeah, that's what you asked for.
That's exactly. Well,
look,
take it or leave it. I suddenly thought, yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just joyful.
Yeah, and that happened. The exact same thing happened to me recently. They said in their mood they wanted to be really funny and upbeat and their guests to be laughing. And that's the way we wrote it. And then when they read it, they come back and said, do you know what we've realised? I think they'd been to 3 or 4 weddings.
That were just like...
And they said, no, that were traditional, and they realised that they really liked the traditional, and they came back and said, do you know what, we realised we want quite a traditional ceremony. So just did what you did, just toned everything down, took out the mad jokes and the funnies, and just toned everything down, and it just hit the mark with them. But that's the whole joy of having a celebrant-led ceremony. You get to do that if it's not right. But now I'm saying to couples, when I send the questionnaire, if you don't want something in your ceremony, don't put it in your questionnaire.
Yeah.
Because often, I don't know about you, but they'll tell you stories and you put them in and they go,
no, don't say that.
Don't put that in, don't put that in.
That'll upset my granny.
Kind of like, well, why did you put it in the first place? I know, I get that. They get carried away and, they're sitting with a glass of wine and they're going through all their journey together. But that happens, and that's, we want to get it right for people. Mm-hmm. We want it to hit the mark. And that's why it's really important to ask these questions, because, sometimes I'll say to a couple, if you don't know what mood you're looking for your ceremony, how will I or another celebrant know how to write your ceremony? Because if we don't ask those questions and I look at you and I think, they're a really fun couple and they sound as if they have lots of fun, and I write a really fun, upbeat ceremony, and actually in your hearts you want quite a reverential ceremony, that's going to jar with you. It's not going to hit the mark. So you need to ask those questions up front to make sure that you are getting that part right, so that when it comes to their ceremony, you know that that you have given them what they've asked for, but you've also woven in all these, as you say, your vows and the rituals, the moments that bring that depth, that take the ceremony just to a kind of whole new level.
And it's like once they see that, because you talk to them about their vows and the ritual, but once you've actually written it and put it in place, it's almost like the penny drops and they suddenly get it. Oh, okay. I mean, not always, but and that's when they start to sort of think, okay, so the vibe is maybe not, let's just have a quick laugh and a party. This is something huge.
Yeah. And you're right. It's often not till they see it down on paper, because couples often don't engage with an actual ceremony till you send it to them. Even when they're doing their questionnaires and you're trying to get them for gathering meetings and life's going on and they're really busy and they're caught up doing between their work and their families and all the other things they're trying to prepare. It's often not until they actually get that ceremony in and they'll come back going, oh my God, that's just made it so real. You know, because that's it. That's what's going to move you through this change that's happening to you and is going to lead you, hopefully, by the time the ceremony's finished, people are feeling, they're either really buzzing. If it's been a really upbeat ceremony, they are totally and utterly buzzing for what's going to come later, or they're just feeling really, really moved. And often they don't have the language they'll just come up and say, oh my goodness, that was just
and that is the power of ceremony, isn't it? I mean, it's different if you're doing like an elopement and it's just the two or four people there. But the power of ceremony isn't about us and two people standing in front of them. It's about everybody in that room. And it's about trying to bring that whole group of people, family, friends, to hold them in that moment. And that's about setting up before, trying to create that environment before is another can be quite a hurdle for celebrants.
It's a huge hurdle because not everybody understands the power of ceremony. And so you've got vendors. So yesterday the ceremony was outside, but it was raining, so you had all these people kind of running out with chairs and tables and people putting flowers up, but they're very much in a kind of functional mode, if you could say that, whereas we come in and we are looking at this bigger picture,
right,
this landscape, the way it's been held, how does it feel? You're looking at the guests and where they're going to be sitting. How do I hold this space in a way that makes these guests feel part of this change that's happening? The music is, because music, it's a big bugbear of mine, and we're going to do a whole podcast on music and ceremonies. That's how important it is. But the music, yesterday I was doing the music, so I knew it would all align properly, but we are taking into consideration all these things, but we're also trying to centre ourselves. We're preparing to step into ceremony. We've come from our own busy lives. Yesterday morning, my grandsons, we're having parties, we're having dens, then we come to somebody's ceremony. It can't just be a continuation of where you've been. You have to stop, you have to breathe, you have to think to yourself. I mean, I imagine it like a circle. We've drawn a circle round it and we are all stepping into that circle, and that circle has been held by forces more powerful than we can imagine. And if we allow it that power to work through us, something really magical is going to happen. But as I say, I have come out of many ceremonies and I've thought,
as much as our intention is there, and it is about it's about engaging that room. It's about engaging your couple, and they are fully invested in that moment. And it is, of course, everybody's going to be sky high or looking over the place, or there's Johnny or whatever, and there's Wayne's running around, and that's okay, because we're not in a church. You don't, things happen, but it's about trying to engage everybody in that, to be present.
But it has to come from the couple or the family. So if you're in a funeral ceremony, everything comes from the deceased, right? That reverence is already there. You don't need to work hard to
rain
people
folk.
feel, exactly. The deceased does that for you, and you just do what you need to do to allow this person to transition. If you're in a wedding ceremony, it's different. Everything comes from the couple. And so I say to them, if you want the best ceremony you can have, you two need to be fully, fully present with each other. Almost as if nobody else exists, as if you're in a wee bubble and it's just you two recognising that whatever's going on in that moment, there's something magic happening to you at a level that we can't even perceive. At a soul level, there is something happening between the two of you. If you can do that, if you can be absolutely, completely and utterly in the moment with each other, that will have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And it will ripple out, it will hold us, who've brought our intention to hold the space in that way. But more importantly, it will ripple out to the guests. They will feel that. They will feel that stillness. They will feel that energy. So it creates a single energy which everybody feels part of. If they don't do that, because undoubtedly the most awkward moment in a wedding ceremony is when the couple meet at the end of the aisle. So usually the groom's standing there. If it's an opposite sex marriage, the groom's standing there. The bride comes in, she walks down, and the two of them, like, it's like married at first sight. Like, where do I put my hands? Do we look at each other? Oh, I don't know. And it's just so awkward. I taught my couples through a few wee things, a few wee tricks to try and avoid that. But if they don't find a way, and I always say to them, have a wee moment.
Yeah,
have
absolutely.
a wee moment.
Just take as much time as you need at that time.
And that's for them to come together, to drop into ceremony together. And this is where I'm starting to say, when I've been talking to them before, this is about you being present with each other. If they don't do that, and it's fractured, and they're vibrating up here and they're distracted. So, you're reading these beautiful words that you've created together. It's a co-creation, right, between you. And you're reading them, or you're lifting them off the page, and they're distracted. They're looking at, there's a wee one running about, and
you've lost them.
It's still rippling out, but it's an altogether different energy. It's a fractured energy. And what happens? You start to see the guests switching off. They start to get a bit agitated and shifty, and that beautiful still energy goes. And once it goes, it's very, very difficult to get it back again, and there's just nothing you can do about it. You just come out the other side at the end of the ceremony and go, that I just came out and think that was such a shame. It was such a wasted opportunity, because that could have been a beautiful ceremony, but it just felt quite superficial. But I mean, so on Sunday I did a ceremony up in Dunkeld, and there was only a hand faster in it. That was the only thing. There were no readings, nothing else going on. But it was the most beautiful ceremony, because the two of them were just, it was as if they'd just locked eyes and fell in love all over again. And everybody felt it. And afterwards, I had loads of people coming up saying how much they loved it, but particularly the two mums, because the groom's mum was saying to me that she'd been really worried about the ceremony, which I thought was, at least you've considered it. She was really worried about what it was going to be like and what's going to happen in it. And our
was that because it was a celebrant doing the ceremony?
I don't know. I never asked her. She just said I had been really worried, and he said, there's a few things going on, or I can't remember how she articulated it, but just wait and see, Mum, or something like that. And she was saying, oh my goodness, it was absolutely beautiful. And the other mum said the way there was this fun, but also, because I often in wedding ceremonies get people to think about the love that they've got in their lives, or have had in their lives, and what that's meant to them, and the journey that they've taken to be there as guests.
Well, that's exactly it. Your couple are there because of everybody else around them. So that's another beautiful way to include everybody, to make them, this is part of the journey. This is part of the process of them moving forward. They wouldn't be here without you. No. And also without others who are no longer with us, as well.
Absolutely. And as you say, it's often couples don't really think about that when they're first deciding to put their ceremonies together or get a celebrant. And it's only through these lovely conversations that you have with them about what they want for their ceremony, what they believe is holding their ceremony, who they believe is going to be present in their ceremony, whether they're there physically or not. And that can be really emotional. You know, yesterday there were tears. You could see tears when we were talking about the fact that they want to acknowledge people that weren't there. Mm-hmm. And it was apparent on both sides. And you could see the tears in their eyes. And that's when you know they're connected with what's happening.
But this comes down to, because we keep talking about celebrants and then we'll say ceremonialists. I know it can get a wee bit kind of muddled, but this is what we're discovering, and this is what Rites and Rituals is all about, is the fact that we have a community of ceremonialists, celebrants who have a spiritual knowing. So we can bring in ritual and ceremony, and all this is so important to us and for our couples or whatever ceremony we're holding. And yet, if other celebrants may not work along that same, not that their work would be any, there's no right, we're not going to say right or wrong, but it might not be as important to them as it is important for us to hold our couples in ceremony.
Yeah. And I don't really look at what other celebrants are doing in terms of, well, anything really. I'm just trying to be the best celebrant that I can be, and to give more value to couples, to bring extra depth to their ceremony. You know, I'm always thinking about how can I make this a more meaningful experience for the couple and for their guests. And I enter into every ceremony, as you do, knowing that it's been held by something greater than just the people that are present, and that no matter what happens, whether it be my words or ritual, if I bring intention to it, so if I go to light a candle, say, and I say this to my couples, don't just walk up and light, they'll often light a candle to remember people that are not there. Don't just walk up and light a candle. That's a bit pointless. You have to go from I am lighting this candle to I am allowing this candle to be lit through me. That's what happens when you bring your intention to it. I am reading these words to I am allowing these words to be lifted off the page through me. So there's something else working, something extremely powerful working through us to deliver that ceremony. And that's, to me, what makes it really powerful. So bringing your intention to it, being fully present in it, recognising, as we said at the start, the power of ceremony and the way that it's been used for thousands of years to mark these life transitions, to mark change that's happening in people's lives, and to look for opportunities in our own lives, in our communities and the larger world, to bring in ceremony and ritual.
Mm-hmm. And I think it is doing if we are bringing ritual into the ceremony, these are tools in a way for our couples and for us to bring in that greater, feeling, that great, whatever your belief is. Now, we're not saying that, we're these high and mighty spiritual people and we don't expect our couples to be. It's going right back to the bare roots, right back to where we came from, our ancestral line, right back to the ground. And it's not like we don't, ram it down our couples' throats. But if it's explained in a way with authenticity and passion, because we're very passionate about what we do, then it should inspire our couples to be invested in ceremony and have another understanding. And hopefully they will then move forward in their lives with perhaps a larger understanding when they maybe start their families, ceremony with their children. All those kind of things can be brought into their lives. And it's huge. It's such a wonderful gift to give to people.
Yeah. But also, just take us rites and rituals celebrants, and every celebrant I'd imagine is the same, but we are not out there looking for couples and families, and we are not out there like, oh, come to me and I'll do your wedding. You have a presence online, and we have our rightsandrituals.co.uk website. If you've not been there, have a wee look. It's fabulous. I have my own brand, my own website, which is I Do Ceremonies, Scottish Eye.
Once upon a ceremony.
So we all have our own identities and our own styles and everything within there. But the idea is that we are out there doing what we love, which is creating ceremony, bringing in rituals, but believing that when we do that, we're being held by something else. And people are drawn to that. Exactly. The right people are drawn to that. That's the whole idea. And
you say it yourself, when you have meetings when couples contact you, and you have the sort of first 10-minute, just we FaceTime or Zoom meeting with them just to see if they, I think that's when we have to be very honest about who we are. And if they don't feel that we're right, then that's fine. You're absolutely, they will go and find the perfect celebrant or person to hold their ceremony for them. But it's right. It's about bringing the right people in. I had a lovely couple I spoke to the other day, and I just knew immediately, because she was saying, oh, I want out in the garden, and it's just a wee house, but they just want it in the garden. And I said, well, let's do it in a circle. And she said, oh, I love that. And all these beautiful things, everything I said, it was like, gosh, yes, I get it. And when we meet our other couples who may not have an idea that something like that is possible, to bring that to them and to suggest how we would hold a ceremony together, you can see them kind of going, oh God, yeah, that's amazing. I love that. Yeah. I love that idea. Well,
look at our very first podcast where we're talking about you coming on the training, and how, and it was funeral celebrant training. It was supposed to be very sort of just the practical aspects of funeral celibacy, and yet there was this wee spiritual thread ran through it, and you grasped onto that, as many people do when they come on they used to come in the Celebrant Training Scotland training. They kind of grab onto that. They love the idea of that it's not just functional, it's not just getting up and reading from a book, that there's something deeper happening, that there's an opportunity for you, through your words, through your presence, through your intention, to help a family move forward in their grief, or to help a couple to step over this threshold from being single to being married in a joyful, happy, meaningful way, or to give new life, a wee baby, a name in a way that honours the baby and the family and marks their arrival into the world. There is so much potential, and there's so much power in it.
It is. It's a very powerful, and if it's right and everything comes in at the right time, then it's incredible. And you know that your couple and everybody in that space that has been held will never forget that magic, because it is magic.
Yeah.
It's the magic of the universe, literally holding. We're just facilitating it. It's something greater holding everything, and that's where the magic comes from.
It absolutely does. So to close this hour, we want to say ceremony is so powerful, but in order for it to have that power, there needs to be intention and there needs to be presence. And so if you are working with couples or families or whatever, and you're thinking, how can I bring more depth? How can I bring more meaning? How can I make this feel held? Then it's about intention and presence. And if you are a couple who are planning on getting married, then it's all about intention and presence. Because if you have those two things in the day, it doesn't matter about your cake, it doesn't matter about your dress, it doesn't matter about your canopies afterwards. That's what's going to bring the magic to your ceremony. Thanks for watching. Very exciting, because our next podcast is not just our faces you get to look at.
They'll be like, oh, thank them.
Thank the Lord. Two of our rites and rituals colleagues will be here to talk about what's drawn them to this work, what drew them to rites and rituals, talking a wee bit about the training, and with four of us here, who knows?
Exactly.
Who knows where it's going to lead.
What shite we can
talk.
talk.
Do you like our new logo? Do you like it? For anybody, we should maybe just mention, because there's maybe a lot of people
a big
looking at
bottle of
that
water
going,
in the middle. Shall I move that?
why is there a road sign on your podcast? If you're Scottish, anybody who's Scottish will absolutely recognise that road sign, because if you're coming up the road from England to Scotland, when you hit Scotland, there's that giant road sign is there at the side of the road, and everybody who's Scottish kind of hangs out the window or goes, yes!
We're home.
I don't know why, because I mean, I love English people, I love going down to England, but it's just a thing. It's become a ritual. Yes! We're in Scotland, so we decided that might be nice for our logo. But listen, thank you for watching or listening. If you've been listening, thank you so much. And if you've got any comments or any questions, anything you'd like to hear on the podcast, please put them in the comments and we'll do our best.
Absolutely.
To do them for you. See you next time.
Bye.